Hello, and welcome to the Kathleen Spracklin podcast. Today's podcast is using a slightly different format. I've got two separate episodes. This is episode 139B. There's also an episode 139A out there, so you'll want to check for that. The reason that I have two separate episodes is that the episodes answer two different questions on two different topics, and that means that when I bring them over into LilyPub, which is where I gather all of my episodes and I organize them by topic over in lilypub.org, they need to go in different places. And so I have to separate them as to two different episodes. And the questions are both fairly short. So here is the second part. Now, the second part has to do with how my directory cards changed. They changed rather dramatically between my old system and my new system. And I've quite recently shown you how I do my directory cards now. But the old ones showed up when I was demonstrating the index in the video, the big video on the indexing yesterday. And so, of course, that generated some questions. Well, in old and new, a directory card is put on a colored card because it is not really officially a part of your Zettelkasten. A directory card has the same number as a real card in your Zettelkasten, and the real card has information pertinent to the topic, but the directory card has information about what's going to come to follow. So without further ado, let's take a look at the old and the new style directory cards, see what's changed, and see why I am loving the new style and totally abandoning the old style. So let's take a look at the cards. Okay, the way I use directory cards has changed dramatically, and I want to show you what the old directory card system that I used to use, compare it to the kind of a directory cards that I make now, and I think you'll be able to see very, very quickly why the old method that I'm now rejecting is just static and dead and contributes nothing, and the new method is a powerhouse. So let me show you with an example of a card. This is an old style directory card for me, and this is using categories. And in my previous practice, I would take a category and break it down into subcategories. And that's how I would begin to work with a directory. So my idea was that the categories function like a table of contents. You can look up from the table of contents, find out what 5,000 means, then this one tells you what 5,100 means, and then each of those breakdowns from there can show you what falls under them. But if you look at this, it's just a heading. It's just telling you that if you want to, that the stuff under 5120 is going to be about indexing. That's kind of flat and dead. Let's even compare the how it shows up in the index itself. Okay, here's 5120 indexing. No help whatsoever. There's no life in that at all. Let's compare some of the other entries on this card on indexing. Look at this first one. No cards have numbers and so can be indexed. Wow, that's a complete thought. You can work with that. Next one down, that symbol, as I mentioned yesterday, is a directory card. Physical objects in a Zettelkasten. Index. What does that tell you? It's just a heading. It's dead. Nothing's going to link to it. You might stuff things in there based on the heading, but it's not inspirational. It doesn't get your mental juices going. Compare that to the very next one down, indexing, the power of a seed. Wow, that just really gets you thinking. So I just don't use those. I don't use directory cards like this anymore, and I don't waste my time with index entries of directory cards anymore because I never link to them and they give me nothing. all this does for me is tell me whereabouts to find things. But if I want to find something, I'm going to go to the index because I'm going to want to know something like, oh, the symbol's on an index card. That's what I wanted to know, not how a note box is organized. So if you don't have a real live thought, your your stuff is going to be rote, and what's worse, you're only working with half a brain. This has no emotional content. And because it has no emotional content, the less verbal side of your brain is just off doing whatever it wants to do and busy getting bored and distracting you because you have nothing to attract your nonverbal brain into the enjoyment of the party. Whereas if you're saying, oh, indexing the power of a seed, woohoo, power, ooh, that gets thoughts going. So this kind of thing, no, I don't use them anymore. So let me show you something pulled out of this section to show you how I do use directory cards now and how lively and alive the new directory card structure is. So here is a new style of directory cards. Now, in my effortless numbering system, this isn't quite my effortless numbering system. It was getting close, but I wasn't there yet. But these are all still numbers, but I have the directory thing broken down. Okay, in the card, there's a regular main card that talks about creating an index card for every letter. Then behind that card, I have 2 child cards. That's what this directory tells me now. This directory tells me that this main card has 2 offspring. Right away, I know that this relates and this relates equally. Both thoughts equally relate to that thought there. And so here are the 2 cards. The first one is promoting key terms when you have 3 or more occurrences. We saw that yesterday when we were indexing. If I have an index card going that's just for a general letter of the alphabet, and I find the same term occurring over and over, like the word index, I make a separate card for that word, and I collect those terms onto that separate card. And that's basically what this card is saying. And of course, it relates to creating an index entry for every letter because it's a case when you don't. What about another case when you don't? Again, we saw that yesterday in the video on indexing, but here's the other card, that we break an index into subgroups by letter when needed. Well, we saw the subgroups yesterday. I actually pulled the cards out of my Zettelkasten where we had separate tabs for those subgroups. And so this card relates very much to creating an index card for every letter, except in this case and in this case. Each of these belong to this main card. But what you see happening in this directory, in one card, you can see immediately that this card has 2 children and 3 ideas are popping in your head right now. This is alive, living, it's functional because it tells me right away that, oh, when I'm done reading this card, there's more. There's more that relates. And it's just enormously powerful. It's stimulating. It keeps both halves of your brain engaged. It keeps the whole process exciting. This is a living directory card with a solid purpose to let you know that this guy has 2 siblings that it loves equally. This card is a sterile directory card with just some blah names that don't really tell you anything. So don't use sterile directory cards. Use living directory cards. And that is the end of part B. So thank you for watching 2 little videos today. Bye-bye.